This is a work primarily conducted to steer the minds and common thought in the context of what concerns health and diet, to look for a starting point and understand there are no certainties and conclusions in those in which we seek refuge. Becoming aware of the fact that we must be concerned firstly with our own persons, harmony of body and mind together, considering that which we often define as unfortunate destiny, a thought fueled by our healthcare system, that leads also the consideration of a chance at the base of many diseases. However, it is nothing but a set of biological and emotional variables, in all subjective, and of which we should be aware firsthand. This thesis begins with the great insight of Peter James D'Adamo, who in publishing the book of It for Your Type, put available to everyone a key to interpreting the evolutionary history of man, explaining how the characteristics belonged to the first hominids still belong to us nowadays, and how this genetic information influences in an unconscious manner and should influence in a conscious manner the way we think about food and ourselves. Finding a starting point in this book, we will try to reach more and more a majority subjectivity, trying to figure out and understand each other without arriving to absolute truth but a partial truth, and with their help learning to listen to ourselves, mainly try to be aware of ourselves in the long or short term that is life, and its immense value, but also in its impetuous perpetual continuing growth and change. Peter D'Adamo realized that something had to exist which made food valid and valid, regardless of no dietary factors, thus affirming that any food can be beneficial for someone, acting as a medicine, neutral if acting as a food, or to be avoided because the given food acts as a toxic substance for a specific person. In other words, the immune system of a person is able to react to a given food with the same intensity with which it could fight an invasive microbe or incompatible blood. Often, the majority of people do you even know what their blood type is, and the answer to the question, "What blood type are you?" is usually very confusing and devoid of any useful information, considering that this information is essential in cases of emergency. This is a decisively superficial approach towards themselves. The evolutionary journey of our blood and how over time man has adapted to climatic, environmental and diet changes began about 500,000 years ago, with the appearance of the first hominids in Africa and the birth of 4 blood types in chronological order 0, A, B, AB respectively. The Zero group appeared about 40,000 years ago. They were hunters, and the meat, therefore the protein digested, fulfilled their dietary needs, and to this day we still find this characteristic in the digestive and immune system of those belong to this blood type. Following this, 20,000 years ago, Type A appeared, which has a predominantly vegetarian diet due to the sudden adaptation needs which came about. It continues with Type B about 10,000 50,000 years ago, which is characterized by nomadic people nourishing mainly by dairy and agricultural products, the only ones who can eat dietary products with a certain freedom. Finally, Type AB, born from the mixture of the other two about 1,000 years ago, can eat everything moderately, not exaggerating with dairy products. But why is blood so important? Even though that red blood cells transport oxygen throughout our body and everything that they do thanks to their ingestion, what we underestimate is the connection that these have with the immune system. In fact, there are also white blood cells in our blood, true sentinels which, through a very complex process of identification, recognize what is proper and what is not. This process takes place thanks to a chemical substances called antigens, literally inducer of antibodies. The more powerful antigens are the ones linked to those which determine a blood type. In fact, when the immune system enters in contact with an antigen of external substances, whether it's a microbe or a food, the immune system's first response is to call attendance to the antigens with determined blood type, therefore the A or B antigens, to discover if an intruder is a friend or enemy. This is an efficient alarm system in our body. Where the immune system has been warned of the presence of a foreign antigen, it produces antibodies which target the foreign antigen in a highly specific manner, adapting themselves and creating an important reaction called agglutination, a process which allows the antibodies to group in the microorganism together, creating small clusters that will be easily repelled. The connection with what was said and with diet lies in the fact that many foods have the same agglutinative power and possesses antigens very similar to the blood types, thus producing the same reaction of rejection of our body that could occur when encompassed blood type. The reaction of this lies in proteins called lectins, with an agglutination capability abundant in food and different from each other. When we eat a food that is not compatible with our body, it would settle in organs such as kidney, liver, brain, and red blood cells begin to agglutinate in that area. For example, milk has a lectin similar to the B antigens. If a person with blood type A drinks milk, his immune system will tend to reject it and it would with the blood of the blood type B. If there is no awareness of which lectins can be damaging for us, it could lead to the formation of conglomerates, which could trigger many of the most terrible diseases. There is indeed that predisposition for falling ill linked to blood type, also with regard to cancer. However, there are studies that establish how much food can prevent, if not cure, this type of disease, such as breast cancer, among the other things, is the most widespread, especially for people of blood type A, who are also among those who react with the less possibility of being cured by therapy such as chemotherapy. This has studied an effect on Helix pomatolectin, an edible snail, which is able to agglutinate the cancerous cells, acting as a catalyst for the immune system and protecting the healthy cells. It is a real waste that lectins contained in food are not used in this field to truly give a real possibility for survival to many and much higher quality of life. Cancer is the emblem of this century, the symbol of the lack of something, the lack of consideration of the connection between mind and body, and the remarkable negligence in a lack of holistic view of the human being and the available scientific information. This work concludes by saying that currently for breast cancer, the learned Adamo is pursuing a reach for non-invasive vaccine and many other valid studies, and it also concluded by urging everyone not to be afraid to be informed about themselves, so as to commit in a critical manner to letting your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. Hippocrates said this, and still now today our doctors swear by it. For more information and more clarification what was said, you are urged to read the thesis CIBO COME MEDICINA and the book It for Your Type of the Dr. Peter James D'Adamo.